to another episode of the Draft Dynasty Podcast here on the Fans First Sports Network. My name is Jeremy Betz, and I'm joined this week by Archie Wilson again as we are prepping for the NFL season. We've done a lot of fantasy content, but this week we wanted to take a step back and talk a little bit about the rookie class again, now that they're settled into their teams and they're working in training camp a little bit, getting ready for whatever roles are going down for them on the rosters. We're recording this in the middle of the Hall of Fame game, so getting to see a few guys that are of interest already. Archie, it's getting to that point where the football is back, and from today, Thursday as we're recording this, and Friday when you'll be listening to this, from Thursday on till February, we've got football every week, and it's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just thinking the same thing. It's awesome these weeks that have gone by doing the podcast with you. We've just gone week by week closer to football, and now it's finally here. So not a whole lot more we could ask for. We've got more preseason action coming up next weekend. But yeah, enjoyed the Hall of Fame game today and ready to get back into some of this rookie class because there's been plenty of reports coming out and some exciting news for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, you've got excitement buzz, you've got question marks. It's kind of the whole gambit, right? As you look at a draft of 200 plus players and undrafted free agency and things like that, and the different roles that they're going to take on those teams. But I think it's worth just diving right into this and starting out. I think you have to start out with Cam Ward as the number one overall pick for the Tennessee Titans. All the Madden ratings came out this last week, right? And he's down at like a 71 as the first overall pick, and there's 60 rookies that are graded or that have a higher overall in Madden than Cam Ward does. So
Okay.
The disrespect is kind of crazy, and the lack of press, the lack of exposure that he's getting down there in Tennessee. Two thoughts from me on it. Number one, kind of unprecedented as a first overall pick at quarterback, and then number two, probably the best thing in the world for Tennessee and for Cam Ward, actually. But getting into how he's looked, if you check out some of the clips from training camp and from even before that, I mean, the guy just looks comfortable. He looks ready to go. He looks like a seasoned veteran out there on the field already. And if you're a Titans fan, there's going to be some bumps in the road. Obviously, he's going to be a rookie quarterback. But you have to feel pretty confident that your team made the right choice, even at this point. And that's how I feel. So I wanted to get your thoughts on the first overall pick before we disperse into some other players from across the draft board.
Yeah, no, so it's interesting what you were saying about how unprecedented it is that Cam Ward's getting no press. And I think it's because the headline of the draft was picked in round 5, and that's Shedeur Sanders, who's also in the same position. So he's definitely been overshadowed by Shedeur and all the storylines that follow him. But in terms of what we've seen from Cam Ward already, it's not to my surprise at all that he looks comfortable operating in an NFL offense against NFL athletes in training camp. It's one of the things that I really respected about him as a prospect when watching him was just how calm he always stayed. He was always in the blue. He was always making not good decisions, but he was decisive. He was always backing what he was going for, and I think that's one of the key things when it comes to being a rookie quarterback, especially being the first overall pick. You're not going to be in a good situation, obviously, unless there's some massive trade up, which doesn't happen. But he's going to be in a situation that's going to be tough to operate in, and I think he's got the mindset to not only stay calm, but if he does make a mistake, because he does play aggressively, that it's just going to be water off a duck's back. Like, he's going to just move on and go make the next play. So I think what we're seeing from training camp is definitely something that you would expect him to be able to emulate into the early parts of his NFL career.
Yeah, and you've got Calvin Ridley there. You've got an that offensive line might be pretty good overall. I mean, you've got Joe Alt there, and you've got, or I'm sorry, not Joe Alt, J.C. Latham there going into his second year. You've got Ben Skoranek, who's got another year under his belt. Overall, it's it's a group that I feel pretty good about. And I think that in front of Cam Ward and then some of the weapons that they added, I'm not saying they're going to be gangbusters this year or even a very good team, but you have to kind of like the basic foundation that he's got there. So I'm pretty high on Cam Ward. I was in the draft. I think it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. But Archie, you got any other right that come to your mind right off the bat here? Any other rookie storylines that you're watching from across the league here?
Yeah, so the one that I've seen a lot of, and it's one that I'm really excited about, is Will Johnson down in Arizona. He's
Yes.
During his sophomore year in Michigan, he was an absolute freak show. He was getting his hands on as many footballs as possible, making plays constantly, and I believe he was the defensive MVP of the national championship game. He was
Mhm.
just a bona fide lockdown cornerback, and probably the best cornerback in college football that year. Obviously, he had the knee injury, which made him slide
Mhm.
down draft boards to, I believe, the 47th pick. But that could be a blessing in disguise. He's got a little bit less hype surrounding him, a few less expectations, but he's walking into a role that I see him as cornerback one pretty much off the rip for the Cardinals. The interesting thing about that fit is that Jonathan Gannon, he loves to play a lot of man coverage, and Will Johnson, if he's cornerback one, he's certainly more of a zone type. He's more of a ball hawk, uses his instincts rather than pressing people up at the line and playing man. So that'll be an interesting fit, but I think the talent is so obviously there with Will Johnson that not only the 47th pick was great value, but what we're seeing in training camp is some of the things that we saw in that second year at Michigan. He's gone toe-to-toe with Marvin Harrison Jr., who 12
Mhm.
months ago was the best receiving prospect we'd seen in a generation. So I think a lot of the
Yep.
excitement um, surrounding Will Johnson coming out of this training camp is definitely warranted.
That rivalry renewed, right? A little bit there between the Buckeyes, Marvin Harrison Jr., and then Will Johnson, obviously now on the same team, but in camp they are bitter rivals on opposite sides of the ball there, and I think it's fun to watch Will Johnson because he's just so fundamentally sound in every aspect, and you just don't catch him out of position, even though he's probably not the most athletically gifted corner. He's not the most physical corner. He just is in your hip pocket constantly. He probably he has to drive the guys that he's covering insane because of just his technique, positioning, and all that good stuff. And when you watched him in college, it was it was just such a treat because he played the cornerback position the way it's designed to be played. And then you bring him into the NFL now, and you're watching him in this Jonathan Gannon defense that has a lot of upside. I think. I know that their other early round rookie Walter Nolan is injured through training camp here, so we're not getting to see him right now. But he's going to be fun to watch for them here. And you've got the vet Calais Campbell there again, and a good linebacker core, and a fun secondary. And I like Jonathan Gannon as a coordinator there. That's going to be a fun group, and Will Johnson might be the piece that makes that secondary kind of really good this year. So I'm excited to see him as well when it gets down to the nitty gritty here and in some of these preseason games coming up. The training camp footage has been a lot of fun. Um, I hate to do it because it seems cliche, but I do want to talk a little bit about Travis Hunter here as well before I kind of dive into some more of my later first round picks or later round picks that are intriguing to me. But it sounds like that kind of like we were thinking he's kind of majoring in offense right now, and minoring on defense when it comes to training camp. A lot of his snaps are coming in with the wide receiver room. The talk is that there's more nuance to it, that there's more that he has to figure out from timing, route depth, combinations, all the different types of things that they're trying to do in Jacksonville with Liam Cohen there. And so they're giving him a lot more reps on offense. And Archie, I think that this is a very intriguing conversation for him because obviously he said, if you're not going to play me two ways, then I don't want to play. And Jacksonville seems to have it in mind to play him both ways. They're deeper at corner than they are at wide receiver, but also Travis Hunter could probably step in and be a top 10, 15 cornerback in the league tomorrow.
Yeah.
So he's got maybe a leg up there, which is why they're probably playing him a little bit more on offense in training camp here. Do you expect when this gets down to actual game time that you're going to see him um, play 100 snaps a game on both sides of the ball and combining for big time snap numbers this year, or are you going to see a little bit more nuanced role for him where he majors on one side of the ball and minors on the other?
I'd love to see him be able to do those 100 reps, 100 snaps, sorry, on either just in a game total, because I'm
Yeah,
very much of the mind with modern science and modern sports science at that you can't really doubt what athletes can do until we're proven wrong, or proven right in the stance, with a lot of experts saying it's not possible for him to go do that. But he's done it all his life, and he did it at a high level for Colorado. So, like, in my mind, like, who are we to say that this guy can't go and do it? Now, the Jaguars might think that potentially they don't want to burn him out too fast, so they'll let him split some time there. But I think if that is the case, we're going to see him more on offense. They've obviously got
yeah,
a bit more depth at corner, as you said. But yeah, I just think in terms of the snaps he's getting on offense more is because the traits that he carries as a corner, they carry so easily back into the NFL in terms of his ball skills being so freakish, and his
yeah.
athletic ability is just pretty much second to none to any cornerback in the NFL. So I think, yeah, in terms of getting the reps, especially with Trevor Lawrence, who's going to be a quarterback that needs a lot of help this year, to take that next step, it makes a lot of sense.
Chemistry on that side of the ball is a lot more. Um, I guess it's hard to come by, right? Because it's such a fluid situation, and in the secondary, yeah, communication, all that stuff that you rely on to be able to field a competent unit. I think that he's just better suited for that when you just look at him as a raw prospect. So giving him those reps on offense makes a ton of sense. If you want to maximize the other pieces on offense, Brian Thomas Jr. specifically, and this running game, you want to get him out on the field to as much as possible to keep defenses honest and not let them climb up in the box and double team Brian Thomas Jr. on every play. So
Yep.
you need him,
Mhm.
because if you don't have him on the field, that wide receiver room looks pretty rough behind BTJ. So I'm excited to see him there. Before we go to break, Archie, you got another player that you want to talk about?
Yeah, so the next player that I was doing or looking into a bit, was Josh Simmons, from the Kansas City Chiefs. I think he was probably the best pass protector coming out of college this year. And I just
Yes.
think the fact he fell to the Chiefs is just diabolical, honestly, because he's so talented. And the only reason he fell that far was because of the ACL injury. But from everything we've heard in camp is that he's pretty much nailed on to be that left tackle, starter, even with the addition of, I believe, was it Jalen Moore from San Francisco, who saw a pretty
Yep.
decent contract come his way. But I think Simmons is going to go out and win that job. And I saw a report recently, I believe Jason Kelsey was comparing him, a lot to, I think, Trent Williams in the play style and what he's seen from Simmons early doors. So I know it's training camp and very early at that, but to get those kind of plaudits from a master of the trenches like Jason Kelsey, it's pretty big. So I think Josh Simmons, there's a lot of hype surrounding this pick at the draft, and I think that's just going to continue.
And the Chiefs need him to be really good right away. They've got championship aspirations from day one this season, and anything short of a championship is a disappointment for the fan base, for that quarterback, for the coach, and so you've got to be able to feel good about who you're fielding at left tackle of all places. And if it's a rookie and you believe in him, I think that you feel pretty comfortable about where this team sits as a unit. They're going to try to be more explosive down the field. They're going to try to be a little bit more game breaking, right? Instead of just plotting like they've been the last couple years. And so I think that he's going to play a huge role. And yeah, you're absolutely right. All the talk is like this guy's a top 10 pick all year, every year, if he doesn't have the injury history that to deal with. So the fact that he lands in Kansas City, he fills their biggest position of need this offseason and that he's looking so good is dream come true. The rich get richer. It's just the way things have been going for Kansas City the last few years. So the excitement has to be brewing. And the one thing you loved about Josh Simmons coming out of college was just like the technical refinement for such a young player to go along with the physical traits, the arm length, the power, the heavy hands, just everything he brings to the table. It all comes together when he's healthy to probably be. I mean, there were a lot of people who had him as the number one offensive lineman in the draft, barring the injuries. Much like as Steelers fans, we talked about Peyton Wilson a couple years ago as probably the top linebacker in the 2024 class if he didn't have the ACL and knee concerns and everything, and he ends up going in the third round. Simmons doesn't last that long, but he lasts late into the first round to where a perennial contender lands a day one starter at one of the top three most valuable positions in football.
Yeah, I just think in terms of the traits and the technique that we were talking about, it's also turned into production on the field. I think even though last year he only played 6 games or so because of that ACL injury, he allowed one pressure. Like that was it. I think the fact that Mahomes is going to have that on his blind side is going to be pretty special for them this year if he can stay healthy because obviously
Yep.
with the way the offensive line's been for the Chiefs recently, that's been their Achilles heel. Mahomes had to get the
Yep.
ball out a lot faster. It's been a lot more check down heavy, and it was a lot further away from the vertical offense that we saw earlier on in Pat Mahomes' career. So I think you might be able to get a
Yep.
bit more time in the pocket now for Pat, especially from his blind side, which Joe Tooney was playing left tackle last year, but obviously he's a great player, but correct me if I'm wrong, he was moved from guard, I believe, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. Yep.
Yeah. So I just think that
So
getting that natural left tackle, as long as Simmons is healthy, it's going to be mayhem for the league.
it's going to be rough.
Yeah.
Buckle up, everybody. That Kansas City team's going to be good again this year. We're going to go ahead and take a break, and when we come back, we've got some more names for you to watch as training camps roll underway and the NFL regular season gets a little bit closer. Don't go anywhere. The Draft Dynasty Podcast will be right back after this. All right, we're back here on the Draft Dynasty Podcast. We are busting through some rookies to watch that we're hearing good things about. Maybe even some concerns that we might get to down the road here. But Archie, we ran through a few names in the front end of the show. But here in the second half, ready to kind of dive into some more nuanced players here, some more role type players. And the first guy I want to bring up here, seen a couple highlights out of Raiders camp for Dante Thornton Jr., the speedster out of Tennessee that lands over there and with the Raiders. And let me just kind of posit this to you this way: the Raiders kind of feel like around the line of scrimmage and in the intermediate portion of the field that they've got a lot of weapons, right? You've got a good offensive line. You've got Geno Smith there kind of dealing to these guys. You've got Jacoby Myers there. You've got Ashton Genty now taking up a huge role in the middle of the field. You even drafted Jack Besh this year, who looks to be a guy that you can use out of the slot. What you really don't have on this team, though, is a downfield threat.
Mm-hmm.
And well, until Dante Thornton Jr. comes out and puts together a couple good practices in a row this last week and is catching balls down the field. He's getting open. He's playing the role that he was drafted to play in a way that's going to maybe open up this offense a little bit more. And as if the AFC needed another team to step into the mix here for the playoffs, if Dante Thornton Jr. plays his role well and combines well with the rest of the acquisitions on this offense this year, this Raiders team could be pretty scary under Pete Carroll.
Yeah, I think Dante Thornton, he was probably the premier height, weight, speed profile in terms
Yeah.
of wide receivers in the NFL draft this year. And that's kind of what he was. That's why he fell so far in the draft, is because he was an athlete coming out of college. He wasn't the most refined route runner, didn't have the greatest hands, but he's one of those guys that if you just have him running deep early and often, that teams have to respect it because he will burn past you. Um, and I think the interesting kind of comparison that you could make is that Geno Smith, with his most successful days in in Seattle, he had one of those burners like DK Metcalf, one of those big height weight speed freaks. Now I'm not
Yeah.
saying Dante Thornton's going to be that guy, because DK, as we all know, was an all-pro wide receiver, not only a
Right.
few years ago, but it's that same kind of mold of being able to take the top um, off a defense. And as you was kind of talking about, the most important thing for the Raiders offense this year is getting Ashton Genty going, um, and creating some holes for him. And now we know he doesn't need a whole lot of holes to get through, um, to create splash plays, but just being able to take an extra man out of the box, if Dante Thornton can become potentially a third or a fourth wide receiver this year and just be that downfield threat, that'll be huge.
It will be. It will be. And I'm excited to watch this Raiders team. I think that it's going to be fun to see how they come together. If they can put it all together in one offseason, right? And be a real contender in the AFC for a playoff spot this year. We'll see. And Dante Thornton Jr. is a fun piece of that. He's not the main piece, right? He's kind of flying under the radar, but that's kind of why I wanted to hit him. He's looking good. And if he fills his role well, it just opens up a lot more things for that offense. So you got somebody else you want to talk about?
Yeah, so I had a Texas prospect here, Andrew McCuber. He's going to be on the
Yeah.
back end this year for Philly. I think the fact that he's one of those athletes again, one of those premier athletes at the safety position coming out of the draft, and you just add him to a group of DBs that is just full of basically athletic freaks with Cooper DeJean, Quinyon Mitchell. I think the fact he's batting with Sidney Brown right now, for that second starting spot at safety, I quite like his opportunities to get on the field early and often this year. And I think the fit beside Reed Blankenship kind of makes a lot of sense, because Makuba's kind of that wild card safety that takes risks, tries to create splash because of his athleticism. He's not necessarily down in the box all the time because he's not the biggest guy, but he can definitely take away a lot across the middle of the field. So I think having Reed Blankenship to partner with him, who does a lot of the dirty work, who gets down and run support, and is that veteran stable presence for that whole secondary now, is Reed Blankenship. So I think that'll be an
Yeah.
interesting one to watch.
I agree. And when Makuba was in the process, right? You liked the instincts, you liked the kind of the willingness to just throw his body into the ring and get in the mix. Not a big player, but fast, instinctive, very willing, like I said, to put his nose in the mix there. And for Philadelphia, they kind of needed that guy. C.J. Gardner-Johnson isn't there anymore. You've got you lost a lot of people in that secondary. Darius Slay is gone. He's in Pittsburgh now, and you needed some guys on the back end that bring a little bit of that attitude and that drive, that willingness to hit. And Makuba does that. So and how he slides in and fits in, and the role that he plays, whether or not he's starting from day one or not, I think he's going to make a big impact for a secondary that's looking to stay sharp, because that front seven looks pretty good again this year for Philadelphia. So I like that one a lot. I wanted to throw out a trio of wide receivers here at you, Archie. I know I just talked about Dante Thornton Jr., but I want to talk about three other guys here, and kind of all for different reasons. Number one, Emeka Egbuka. Well, you and I talked about him along with Andrew Wilbar at one point in this draft. How kind of he's like maybe one of the like no brainer is going to be a hit in wherever you draft him. And he's not going to be super flashy maybe, but he's going to be a good football player from day one. And I think he looks like a big time contributor over there in Tampa, even though he's going to be playing behind you would think Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, and you've got the rookie from last year that whose name is escaping me right now for some reason, but yeah, Jalen McMillan. That's right. I knew it was one of the Macs out there, but Jalen McMillan and all the reports are Emeka Egbuka could be their number 2 wide receiver today if Chris Godwin's not fully healthy at any point this year, and Mike Evans obviously is going to be kind of the one over there, but Egbuka's standing out. And then you have Trey Harris with the Chargers, who kind of, again, another role player, try to take some of the attention away from the McConkey over the middle of the
Yeah.
field and be that big body threat on the outside. And then Luther Burden, who's had an up and down camp. There's been a lot of chatter about him getting under the crawl of Ben Johnson for a couple days there, and then turning it around the last couple days as we're recording this, and having a couple good showings. So those three receivers, like if they hit for their teams, it could take like a Buccaneers team who's looking to contend for a Super Bowl actually in the NFC,
Mm-hmm.
could take them to another level, for a Chargers team that is ready to take the next step. And then for in Trey Harris, that is, and for Luther Burden, maybe a huge part of what Ben Johnson and the Bears are trying to do to give Caleb Williams a fresh start over there. So those three receivers standing out to me throughout the first week or two of training camp here.
Yeah, Emeka Egbuka, I mean, one of the huge things that followed him through his college career is he's a culture setter. He doesn't mind not being the
Yep.
number one guy. He's been behind Marvin Harrison and now maybe the best wide receiver prospect I've ever seen, Jeremiah Smith. So
Yeah.
in terms of
Yep.
Igbuki, he's not going to be worried about getting a whole lot of touches. He definitely will get involved though because he's too good not to. I mean, from what we've heard, he's been getting the ball over the middle. He's been running a lot of corner routes, getting the ball at the back pylon, and just getting open in so many different ways. And I heard Mike Evans talking about how he's a standard raiser on and off the field, and that's
Yep.
kind of that leadership that Igbuka already brings. And when I was talking about the Steelers pre-draft, I was thinking he comes in and he's instantly the leader of the wide receiver room just because of the way he
Yeah.
carries himself. So the fact he's able to kind of portray that leadership already in a room with Chris Goldman and Mike Evans says a lot about who Emeka is as a player and a person. I think
Yeah.
Baker was also saying you can play him anywhere, so you're probably going to see him outside,
Very
inside.
Heinz Ward like, right?
Yeah,
Like, yeah.
yeah, just intangibles are off the chart. So, and then Trey Harris, I think he's obviously going to be in that competition with Quinn Johnston, who obviously looks like maybe a potentially a failed first round pick for the Chargers. He's obviously got this year to prove that. But Trey Harris is going to be another guy on the outside, a big body. He was one of the better deep threats in college football last year. Not the fastest guy, but created a bit of vertical separation and made a lot of plays for Ole Miss and their kind of gadgety offense, but still made a lot of plays that translate to NFL levels. And then the
Yep.
last name you had was
Luther Burden
Luther
there in
Burden.
Chicago. Yep.
Yeah, I mean
Yep.
all the all the reports check out in terms of what we heard pre-draft about Luther, kind of having an up and down off the field attitude
Yep.
sometimes. So that makes a lot of sense. But then following that with him having a few good days and bouncing back, that checks out once again because we saw on tape at Missouri that he's just a freak when the ball's in his hands. He doesn't have eye-popping numbers in terms of 40 yards, but he's just unbelievable. So I think if the Bears can kind of harness and make sure that he buys in fully into this offense that's going to share the ball a lot around. You got Colston Loveland,
Yep.
first round pick, that's going to need to see the ball. And he's had a lot of raving reports of being the starting tight end. But then behind him is Cole Kmet, who's a tight end that you've paid a sizable amount of money that also needs to see some ball. DJ Moore, I mean, there's just weapons all over the place. So in terms of Luther Burden, if he can kind of buy into the role that he's going to be given, especially under Ben Johnson, who looks like a no-nonsense coach. I think that could do a lot of wonders for not only Caleb Williams as a kind of an easy button receiver to go throw the ball to him 2 yards past the line of scrimmage, and then Luther might go take it an extra 20 just to get things rolling. So that's
Yep.
kind of what I understand is what's happening with the Bears right now.
Yeah. That Bears team, sink or swim, they're going to be fun to watch because there's going to be a lot of big personalities and expectations and all that good stuff on a lot of these characters over there, and so they're going to be appointment viewing this season for sure. Give me a couple or three, just kind of rapid fire here, Archie, that you're thinking about still. Maybe some storylines for some specific players.
Yeah, Kyle Williams was a receiver that I couldn't leave off the list. He's a sensational route runner, another guy with good intangibles from all accounts from what we heard through the pre-draft
Yep.
process. And I think looking at the the depth chart, there's Stephon Diggs, who they paid a lot of money to at the Patriots, Pop Douglas, and Matt Collins. So I think there's a lot of reps and a lot of opportunity there for Kyle Williams to eat into, especially if he can show that he's the best route runner out of the rest of those guys, not named Stephon Diggs. They're going to enjoy having that kind of option with a second-year quarterback. That's obviously just going to appreciate someone getting open for him. So that was one name.
Yep.
And I think it's kind of hard to leave off the Saints and the Browns quarterback kind of situations we got going.
Yes.
By all accounts, Tyler Shuck's having a rough time in New Orleans. I think he's sitting at third in the depth chart, and that's not just because of optics. I think he's missing a lot of throws from what I've heard. And yes, it's training camp, it's routes on air, things of that nature. But the decision making and those tools that was hyped up through that draft process don't seem to be translating super early. So I think you might find it could be Spencer Rattler starting week one, or the other quarterbacks whose name I've forgotten, where Tyler Shuck
Is
seems
that
to be Hayner?
is that oh man, it's not Tanner McKee. He's in Philly.
No, Jake Hayner, is it? Something like that?
Jake Haener, that's
Yep,
right. Yeah,
yep.
yeah. I knew it was something Hanner or
Yeah.
Tanner or something like that. So
Yes,
Jake Haener. Yep.
I think a lot of
You
people
got it.
penciled in Shuck to be the starter week one because of the draft capital they spent on him, and kind of him being the age that he is, the fact that he's not looking like a step above what they've already got in house could be slightly worrying. And then just to get to the Browns quickly, it's just you got Shador Sanders there, so he's obviously the big name. Dylan Gabriel,
Yep.
they both seem to be going toe to toe. I mean, no one's stepping out above the rest. From by all accounts, Kenny Pickett looked like the best quarterback to start off camp, but he's now injured, so there's more reps going
Good boy.
around. So yeah, as we've kind of said throughout the show in the last few weeks, don't be surprised if there's 4 starting quarterbacks at some stage for the Browns this year.
Yeah, and don't be surprised if one of those guys finds himself in another spot as well, and you rotating through a veteran and 2 rookies or something along those lines. But
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. So good observations there. They're going to play. All those guys going to play key roles into the 2025 season. I know I was pegging Tyler Shuck as the starter because Spencer Rattler. I don't know about you, Archie, but guys Spencer Rattler's size, it just I just have a hard time getting on board those trains. Even like Bryce Young, right? I have a hard time jumping on board that bandwagon because yeah, he finished out the year strong last year, but can he last at the size he's at? Can he really be an elite quarterback in this league? I just have a hard time getting on board with those guys. So we'll see. I like Shuck's body type at least a little bit better when it comes to professional quarterbacking, but we'll see how it plays out over there. I just want to talk about just throw out a few guys. First off, the Atlanta Falcons, Jalen Walker and James Pierce Jr.
Yep.
The 2 edge rushers that they took in the first round. Sounds like from early portions of camp that James Pierce Jr. is nearly unblockable when he's coming off the edge as a speed rusher, and that Jalen Walker's taking some time to transition from the middle linebacker spot to full-time on the edge. He went back and forth at Georgia, but he was mostly an off-ball linebacker at Georgia, right? A lot like Nolan Smith was for them for Georgia for a while before being drafted as kind of like an edge player, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe it was the other way around for Nolan Smith. You're right. Nolan Smith was an edge player at Georgia, and in the draft process, I was like, maybe move this guy to off-ball linebacker because I think he's got the range and speed to be able to do that. So a little bit different categories there, but still watching out for these two because they're both going to play into the Falcons' success this year. I like what they have on offense, but the defense needs help. They need pass rush help. And I think they've got Leonard Floyd there now, which I like that move, but having these 2 guys to get off the edge and maybe that you combine them off the edge and try to rotate them in for different scenarios. Excuse me. Maybe that works for them. I think it's something to watch there. And then I wanted to talk about Jonas Savaianea from the Dolphins. The Dolphins moved heaven and earth to make sure that this guy was a member of their team in the second round. And the reports coming out are mixed on Savaianea. It's like, yeah, he looks good, but is that just because the Dolphins were so bad there before, and how is he going to do in run blocking, and where are you going to actually end up playing him? It sounds like that they want to play him at guard, but eventually maybe groom him to jump out and play tackle. Teron Armstead's done over there, so how do they make that offensive line work, and how does Jonas Savaianea fit into that? And then one more positive here, Carson Schweschinger, and I can never say his name right, but looks fantastic for the Cleveland Browns. He may be one of the next really good linebackers in this league, and he's playing for a Cleveland defense that needs some bounce back and some excitement somewhere on this roster. So just some guys that I'm keeping an eye on, and you don't have to comment on all of them, but if you have a thought or two on one of those guys, go ahead and give it here before we close out.
I think the Falcons pass rush is just so interesting because they've been bad for so long. And I think the two prospects that they picked and invested so much this year, they're both fairly similar in terms of high-twitched athletes, not super big, not great against the run. So it's going to be interesting to see how they can rotate those guys around, as you said. And especially once you get NFL-level linemen on them, like how are they going to operate when they do have a run coming their way in outside zone? In terms of Savaianea, I think he's going to have to do a lot of heavy lifting. He's going to need to show his athleticism in space because that's what the Miami Dolphins require if they're trying to get back to that high-powered offense with Devon A-Chain and the speed of Tyreek Hill. If Tua can stay fit, which is the main question. But Savaianea, I think, once again, it's very early to tell, especially with guys in the trenches, how they're translating, especially at training camp. So it will be an interesting one to watch. I think once they settle on guard, that's probably where you want to stay. I didn't see a whole lot of tackle guard versatility in him coming through the draft, but maybe they see something I didn't. And then the last name you had was Schweschinger. One thing that I kind of bought into that I read recently is that this guy was a walk-on at UCLA, and coming in as a rookie is kind of the same situation. Even though he was a higher draft pick, you're coming in, you've got to prove a point, and all he's done is made plays throughout his career at UCLA, whether it was in training or in games, just to prove that he's worth the time of day to start with and to get reps and opportunities. So it doesn't surprise me that he's making plays because, one, he's a good athlete, and two, it seems like intangibles and the way he carries himself with a massive chip on his shoulder, and that's only a good thing when you've got an athlete of his kind of caliber.
Absolutely. And so many names we could get to in this show that we don't have time for, but I think this was a good group to kind of set the stage for some of the bigger player storylines to track here. And obviously a lot of these first round picks that we didn't get to are going to be guys to watch. I think of Derek Harmon in Pittsburgh, just how good he's looked in camp so far for the Steelers, and Shamar Stewart finally signing his deal for Cincinnati. How does that work out? Guys like Tyleik Williams off the edge for Ohio State, or not Ohio State anymore, excuse me, for Detroit, alongside some of the other pieces that they have there. How does he fit in? Matthew Golden in Green Bay, who's looked pretty good too. So there's so many names we could get to, Archie, and it's going to be a fun season because of it. But any final thoughts you want to give? Anything you want to plug before we call it a show?
Final thoughts. When you mentioned Matthew Golden, the first thing I thought of was the number he's got on his jersey.
Oh,
I think he's got to find a new number that's not 22. That's for sure.
Does that tell you that they're going to move a wide receiver, right? And he's going to get a new number?
Oh, I hope so. Because, man, you can't be rocking 22 as a first-round wide receiver, that's for sure. In terms of plugs, just keep an eye out on the website. I've got a few things coming out with the Steel Curtain Network, and then carrying on with my Premier League coverage of Chelsea. That starts up here fairly soon. So got two of my favourite sports coming up here. Well, my two favourites, so not a whole lot better for me.
Good deal, man, and we appreciate your analysis here. And I know Andrew Wilbart's coming back here soon, but it's been fun having you on this summer, and we'll have you on again as we continue to roll through things. So appreciate you, appreciate your analysis. It's been a lot of fun getting to know you a little bit, and we will have you on the Draft Dynasty Podcast and other shows here again soon. But for now, that's going to do it for myself and for Archie. We're going to see you next time here on the Fans First Sports Network and the Draft Dynasty Podcast. Keep drafting, everybody.